Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear viewers. So in this short video we will discuss about the regulation of glomerular filtration rate, that is GFR. So there are basically three factors which regulate GFR, that is nervous factors, hormonal factors and the autoregulation. Now first of all we will discuss the nervous factors. Please note that in normal and healthy persons during resting conditions, the sympathetic nervous stimulation has no significant effect on the GFR. But in acute emergency conditions like circulatory shock or hypovolemia, there is increased sympathetic stimulation, due to which vasoconstriction of afferent arteriole occurs. As you can see here, due to increased sympathetic stimulation, vasoconstriction of the afferent arteriole occur, due to which the resistance of the afferent arteriole increases. Now, due to this increased resistance of the afferent arteriole, the renal blood flow decreases, and due to decreased renal blood flow, the glomerular capillary hydrostatic pressure it decreases. Now you know that it is the major determinant of the GFR. So when glomerular capillary hydrostatic pressure decreases, the GFR also decreases. And as you can imagine, this is beneficial in scenario of circulatory shock and hypovolemia and hypotension, because it will decrease the urine output, and hence it will serve to preserve the precious water in the body. Now the second factor which affects and regulates GFR, it is hormonal. So there are two types of hormones, that is vasoconstrictors like norepinephrine, epinephrine and endothelin. And the second category of hormones is vasodilators. So the effect of vasoconstrictors like norepinephrine, epinephrine and endothelin, it is just like that of the nervous or sympathetic nervous stimulation. That is, they cause the vasoconstriction of the afferent arteriole and increase the resistance of the afferent arteriole and decrease the renal blood flow, due to which PG or glomerular capillary hydrostatic pressure decreases and it decreases GFR. While on the other hand, the second type of hormones, that is vasodilators, they also act on the afferent arteriole, but they cause vasodilation. For example, prostaglandins and endothelial derived nitric oxide, they are vasodilators and they act on the afferent arteriole and cause vasodilation. Now due to this vasodilation, the resistance of the afferent arteriole it is decreased and renal blood flow increases. Due to this increased renal blood flow, glomerular capillary hydrostatic pressure increases and it serves to increase the GFR. So now we will discuss the autoregulation of GFR, which is the most important mechanism regulating GFR. Auto means self, that is self-regulation of GFR. It is called so because it is dependent upon the mechanisms which are intrinsic to the kidney. That is, no external factor is required for the regulation of GFR, but this regulation of GFR it occurs due to the mechanisms which are inherent or intrinsic to the kidney. Now, autoregulation means that GFR it will remain constant despite the changes in the arterial blood pressure. You know that there are various changes occurring in a person's during routine activities in the arterial blood pressure, like when we are sitting or standing or lying. So our arterial blood pressure during these postural changes or due to other activities like during exercise, our arterial blood pressure it changes. But despite these changes in the arterial blood pressure, which can range from 80 to 200 millimeter of mercury, our GFR and renal blood flow they remain constant. So this phenomenon it is called autoregulation. Okay, so autoregulation simply means that our GFR will remain constant despite the changes in the blood pressure. So the same thing it is depicted here in form of a graph. As you can see here in this graph, on the x-axis we have arterial blood pressure and on the y-axis we have GFR. So as you can see, when the blood pressure changes from 80 to 200 millimeter of mercury, the GFR it remains constant. Okay, from 80 to 200 millimeter of mercury, our GFR it remains constant. As you can see here, blood pressure is changing but GFR is constant. But when the blood pressure it falls from 80 millimeter of mercury, as you can see here, the GFR it decreases. So in this range from 80 to 200 millimeter of mercury, the autoregulation is very effective. Now there are two theories about the autoregulation of GFR, or we can say there are two mechanisms which can explain the autoregulation of GFR. That is Tubulo-glomerular feedback theory and myogenic theory or myogenic mechanism. We will explain each of these. First of all, we will explain the Tubulo-glomerular feedback mechanism. So this mechanism is dependent upon juxtaglomerular apparatus. Okay, juxtaglomerular apparatus. So this apparatus it is located in the near to the glomerulus. Juxta means near. So juxtaglomerular means near to the glomerulus. As you can see here, this is the glomerulus, this is the Bowman's capsule, and this apparatus is located here. So there are two components of juxtaglomerular apparatus. These two components are macula densa cells, as you can see here, macula densa cells, and the second component of this apparatus is JG cells or juxtaglomerular cells, as you can see here. So JG cells or juxtaglomerular cells, these are located in the afferent arteriole. So this is the afferent arteriole, as you can see here. This is the glomerulus and this is the efferent arteriole. So JG cells, they are located in the afferent arteriole. And the second component of the juxtaglomerular apparatus, these are these macula densa cells. As you can see here, these are bright yellow cells and these are called macula densa cells. These cells are located in the wall of the initial portion of DCT. Okay, as you can see here, this is Bowman's capsule, this is proximal convoluted tubule, this is loop of Henle, and this is the DCT. And this one particularly is the initial portion of DCT. So in the initial portion of distal convoluted tubule or DCT, these macula densa cells are located. And please note that these macula densa cells, these are sensors for sodium ion. Okay, these can sense the sodium ion concentration in the initial portion of distal tubule. While the JG cells, they have renin enzyme and they will release renin enzyme. Okay, so now with the help of this flow chart, I will try to explain how this tubulo-glomerular feedback theory it operates. Suppose our arterial blood pressure it decreases due to any cause. The arterial blood pressure has decreased. So due to this decreased blood pressure, what will happen, that glomerular capillary hydrostatic pressure will decrease, because you know that the major determinant of the glomerular capillary hydrostatic pressure, it is our arterial blood pressure, as we have talked about in the previous video. So due to decreased blood pressure, the glomerular capillary hydrostatic pressure, it will decrease, and when it will decrease, it will cause a decrease in the GFR. Now when GFR will decrease, what will happen, that the rate of flow of the glomerular filtrate, okay, the rate of flow of the glomerular filtrate in the proximal convoluted tubule, it will decrease. Okay, I will explain, I will tell again that when GFR it is decreased, okay, when GFR is decreased, less glomerular filtrate is formed and its flow rate, the rate of flow of glomerular filtrate in the proximal convoluted tubule, it will also be decreased. So when this filtrate will flow slowly in the proximal convoluted tubule, more time it is given to the NaCl for reabsorption. So what happens, that in proximal convoluted tubule, the NaCl reabsorption is increased due to decreased flow rate of glomerular filtrate. So when in the proximal convoluted tubule, the NaCl reabsorption is increased, means that the NaCl which will reach in the subsequent portions of the nephron, that is loop of Henle and distal convoluted tubule, it will be automatically be decreased, because more NaCl it is reabsorbed in the PCT. So now less sodium it will reach in the DCT, and when this less sodium it reaches the initial portion of DCT, there, as we have just discussed, there are present macula densa cells. So these macula densa cells, they will immediately sense the decreased concentration of sodium chloride. And now these macula densa cells, they will immediately pass a signal to the JG cells, nearby located JG cells in the wall of the afferent arteriole. So JG cells, they will secrete the renin enzyme, and renin will cause formation of angiotensin 2, and this angiotensin 2, it immediately acts on the efferent arteriole because it has got its receptors there. So the resistance of the efferent arteriole will increase due to vasoconstriction. The resistance of the efferent arteriole, it will increase as a result of vasoconstriction. What will happen, that it will cause increase in the glomerular capillary hydrostatic pressure. Okay, so glomerular capillary hydrostatic pressure will increase due to increased resistance of the efferent arteriole, and due to this GFR will also increase back to the normal. So what has happened here, despite the any decrease in the arterial blood pressure, which was expected to decrease GFR, the GFR, as a result of all this mechanism, it has increased. Now there is also a second very important component of this response. We will start from here. When macula densa had sensed decreased concentration of sodium chloride. Now macula densa, besides causing an efferent arteriolar response, it also causes an afferent arteriolar response. But we don't know exactly that what are the mediators of this response. Probably due to when macula densa senses the decreased level of sodium chloride here in the initial portion of the distal tubule, probably by somehow or the other, it increases the concentration of nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator, and probably it decreases adenosine and ATP, but we don't know exactly. Now somehow or the other, due to this response, the afferent arteriolar resistance, it is decreased, as you can see in the bottom here. The resistance of the afferent arteriole is decreased due to its vasodilation. Now due to decreased resistance of the afferent arteriole, again the blood flow is increased and glomerular capillary hydrostatic pressure, it is also increased, due to which GFR increases. So this is the basic concept of autoregulation, that despite changes in the arterial blood pressure, the GFR, it tends to remain constant. Now the second theory which can explain the autoregulation, it is myogenic theory. Now suppose due to any reason arterial blood pressure, it has increased. Now due to this, the glomerular capillary hydrostatic pressure Pg, it will also increase, and due to increased Pg, the GFR will tend to rise. Okay, so blood pressure has increased, and due to increased blood pressure, GFR is also expected to increase. But now please note that increased blood pressure, it will stretch the smooth muscle in the walls of the afferent arteriole, as you can see in this figure. So this is the afferent arteriole, this is the glomerulus, and this is efferent arteriole, and this is the smooth muscle. This is the smooth muscle in the wall of afferent arteriole. So when our blood pressure increases, this smooth muscle in the wall of the afferent arteriole, it gets stretched, and when the smooth muscle in the wall of the afferent arteriole, it gets stretched, what happens, that the smooth muscle, it responds by contracting. The smooth muscle here in the wall of the afferent arteriole, it contracts, and it means that there is vasoconstriction of the afferent arteriole. So due to this vasoconstriction, as you can imagine, the renal blood flow, it will decrease, and glomerular capillary hydrostatic pressure, it will also decrease, and GFR will also decrease back to the normal. So again, what has happened here, that initially there was increase in the arterial blood pressure, which was expected to increase the GFR also. But due to this myogenic mechanism, that is intrinsic muscle activity or smooth muscle contraction, the GFR, it has decreased back to the normal, and the GFR, it does not increase despite changes or despite increase in the arterial blood pressure. Hope you would have understood the three mechanisms which are regulating our GFR, and you would have enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to this channel. Stay blessed, and Allah Hafiz.